Marijuana is the most commonly used psychotropic drug in the United States after alcohol. Its use is widespread among young people. In 2018, more than 11.8 million young adults used marijuana in the past year. That is according to drugabuse.gov in a 2019 article. So today I'm here to ask you, is medical marijuana a gateway drug? Yes, some research suggests that marijuana is likely to precede use of other licit and illicit drugs and the development of addiction to other substances. That is also according to drugabuse.gov, but in an article from April of 2020. Marijuana use is commonly linked to further drug abuse in the future. I'm going to show this by going over the history of medical marijuana, how it evolved into the different forms that we see today, and how its use can oftentimes lead to use of other drugs down the road. Marijuana, also known as cannabis or pot, has a long history of human use. Most ancient cultures didn't grow the plant to get high, but rather as a herbal medicine. Likely starting in Asia around 500 BC, the history of cannabis cultivation in America dates back to the early colonists, who grew hemp for textiles and rope, according to history.com. Marijuana began being used in Central Asia, but quickly became used throughout Europe, Africa, and eventually the Americas for its use of making clothing, paper, sails, and rope, and its seeds were used as food as well. These original hemp plants had extremely low levels of THC compared to what we see today. This plant made its way to the Americas when the Europeans began to settle here. In fact, in the early 1600s, it was required to be grown in Virginia, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. In the 20th century, due to political and racial factors, marijuana became illegal, which in the last 24 years has been slowly reversed. There is some evidence that ancient cultures knew about the psychoactive properties of cannabis plant. They may have cultivated some varieties to produce higher levels of THC for use in religious ceremonies and healing practices. That is according to history.com from an article in May of 2017. Showing that from a very early on, people knew of the psychoactive properties in marijuana and started to want to increase the levels of THC. This leads us to the evolution of marijuana. As we know it today, the feel-good mellow drug utilized by the majority of youth in America. This hemp plant originally was found with very little THC, but over the years, due to popularity, people found a way to make the plant produce more THC. Even today, it is common to find forms of nearly pure concentrated THC like wax or the juices that people used in their weed pens or vapes. This, along with widely accepted legalizing of this plant and its uses, led to a stronger and increasingly variable forms of THC. Cannabis is most commonly cultivated, trafficked, and abused illicit drug worldwide, according to the World Health Organization. Marijuana consumption has an annual prevalence rate of approximately 147 million individuals, or nearly 2.5% of the global population. In 2014, approximately 22.2 million Americans 12 years of age and older reported current cannabis use, with 8.4% of the population reporting use within the previous month. That is according to Dr. Mary Barna Bridgman of a March 2017 article. This mixture of different types of marijuana and uses for it, along with its increasing popularity, creates the perfect storm for it to become an easy transitional or gateway drug. It should come as no surprise that the vast majority of heroin users have used marijuana and many other drugs not only long before they used heroin, but while they are using heroin. Like nearly all people with substance abuse problems, most heroin users initiated their drug use early in their teens, usually beginning with alcohol and marijuana. That is according to New York Times author Robert Dupont in a 2017 article. Just like most addicts, many people believe that the first time won't hurt, but it all must start somewhere. Marijuana use is oftentimes easy for young people to obtain and makes the novelty of doing drugs disappear, normalizing this rebellious feeling. A recent research article sought to examine whether the use of marijuana really produced reductions in opioid use. It used a large data set good from a well-established natural survey, that was conducted with 2001 to 2005 to answer this question. The overall results suggested that marijuana use actually significantly and substantially increased the odds that a person would misuse opioid medication after using marijuana. That is in an article from Psychology Today. This article helps show that while it doesn't affect everyone, just as some people aren't always susceptible to addiction, and addiction is crazy because not everyone is affected by it in the same manner. Some people just simply don't have the personality for it, while others are extremely susceptible to the behavior of addiction. The form of gateway drugs come to you the same way. Not everyone is susceptible to using weed as a gateway drug to other drugs, but it all becomes with personality. So the true potential of whether a drug is a gateway drug or not depends on the person who is utilizing it. In conclusion, medical marijuana is a commonly used drug that leads to further use of worse drugs later on because of how socially acceptable and readily accessible the drug is to young people in the U.S. Marijuana has a long history of use with humans and over the years, and it has slowly adapted into a stronger and more readily accessible drug, all while making this gateway drug easier to get to further the drug use in the U.S. So yes, marijuana is definitely used as a gateway drug. Marijuana is most commonly used psychotropic drug in the United States after alcohol.